So, you're having trouble finding an all-tenant-owned home community, and you've decided, why not just buy a community with park-owned homes and just sell them off? That's simple enough, right? As with everything in life, it turns out several hurdles complicate this strategy. This old school, yes, old school strategy can prove very successful. We, along with many other groups, have successfully pulled this strategy off time and time again. On this episode, we are going to cover the ins and outs, mistakes you'll likely make, and the overall viability of this strategy. That way, you can decide if that fits your endgame or if you should avoid it like the plague.
Warning. This podcast features the truth about owning and operating mobile home parks. The following program is not designed to be sexy. It will not hype you up on MHPs. Rather, this is a raw take on this industry and how you find your own path to success. Welcome to MHP IRL, Mobile Home Parks in Real Life, with your host, Ryan Norris.
A warning before we get started. You may not legally be able to sell off those homes. Several states require you to get a dealer's license if you want to buy or sell more than 2 mobile homes per year. You do not want to get caught breaking these laws. An unlicensed wholesaler burned me on a used home once, and I pursued him to the full extent of the law, and I won. If that individual continues the behavior, he could face jail time. Yes, you heard right. Jail time. Not only do certain states dish out crazy high fines, but some also issue punishment by dishing out time in the slammer. Stop. Research the state you want to sell park-owned homes in. Then plan accordingly. Chapter 1. Licensing. Obtaining a dealer's license, depending on the state, consumes a lot of time and money. We have paid thousands, gone through financial audits, attended classes, taken tests, seemingly wasted countless hours to make sure we had and continue to have what we need to operate legally in each state. You heard correctly. You may have to attend a class or take a test. Some states will take you 6 months or more to obtain a license. Would it derail your plans to have to sit on park-owned homes for 6 months or more? If your underwriting depends on quick infill and or sales of homes, you may want to dig deeper on the licensing piece. We held on to equity in our first ever purchase for nearly 3 years, and by our exit, a dealer's license still had not been acquired. Thankfully, bringing in new homes and selling them off would have just been icing on the cake. But had that been a crucial part of the deal, we would have been crushed. Do not try to be clever and circumvent the law. Here's why. Let's say you sell a home as is, or even fix it up for someone, but then 6 months down the road, something happens in the house. Say the subfloor gives way or the deck falls apart. If those tenants decide to pursue legal action, even if you have a contract that says you sold the home as is, if they found out you sold that home illegally, you could face serious consequences. Like they say, anything worth doing is worth doing right. Don't get cute. Get licensed. Chapter 2, the 1/3 rule. I'll just sell the folks already living in them, right? People renting usually rent because they want to rent. Traditionally speaking, I've encountered the 1/3 rule, where within 12 months, I'll convert about a third of the in-place tenants. Then about a third of the tenants will leave either via eviction or natural turn. And then a third aren't going anywhere. Although easier to evict a renter than a homeowner, the collections process will wear you down. People will beg, lie, and hustle to stay put and continue their antics. People will tell you they have no place to go and that you'll be making them homeless. I know that might sound ridiculous, but hearing that wears on you. Even seasoned people like me, who have heard that countless times and seen time and time again those exact same people quickly finding other local solid options. If you lack empathy for others, then that might be easy for you. If you don't, expect a few gut-wrenching moments. Even good people will give you great reasons as to why they should stay put and continue to rent from you. For example, seniors on fixed incomes tend to always pay their bills on time, in full, and abide by your rules. Why would it benefit them to be a homeowner? If they can barely afford rent, why would they want to assume the liability of something serious breaking? To someone on a fixed income, having a monthly rent they can budget means the absolute world to them. You may change your mind about park-owned homes when you meet some of those folks. The same applies to people on disability or really any kind of limited but stable income source. You may also find that some of the people that care the most about your community, that you want in your community, just for whatever reason want to be renters. Your mind may change. You may want to operate a hybrid model and keep some of those park-owned homes. You may also get burned by an HVAC or have to replace a roof and decide enough is enough. Regardless, if you think you are just going to roll in and convert in 3 to 6 months, you really need to consider the risks you are accepting if the process drags out. Chapter 3. Out with the old, in with the new. In my experience on turnaround properties, often the former owner did a poor job of screening tenants, meaning you may have some serious knuckleheads to contend with. I strongly recommend you run your own background check on tenants looking to convert. And do not be afraid to deny if they do not meet your criteria. That's brutal, by the way. How are you going to deny me when I already live here? You may need to non-renew people to get them out. Sometimes vacant homes are preferable to rented out homes. Telling folks they no longer have a home is heartbreaking. Make sure you work with people if you decide to go that route. That could range from giving them their full security deposit back, regardless if they deserve it, giving them a few extra weeks, waiving late fees, writing recommendations, talking with the new landlord face-to-face, and so on. Even if you don't care about the human side of this business, working with people usually actually will wind up better for you than being cold-hearted. If you respect people, they'll respect you more on the way out than they would have otherwise. The tenants may not be the only in-place aspect of your mobile home park that you'll want to change either. You may also run into weekly or bi-weekly rentals, which you may want to switch to monthly. Most of your tenants live paycheck to paycheck. It's a big ask to have your tenants save up for the switch to monthly while paying weekly. Be aware, too, that weekly rentals are a mess from an accounting standpoint. Regardless of what you want to change, take time and due diligence to play out contingencies. Certain changes you want may not be so simple to implement. Chapter 4, Rehabs. Now that you have a vacant home, you need to assess whether you will or will not rehab it, and if so, to what degree. Homes that smell nice and present well will move faster. But don't go crazy. Folks have different tastes than you do. They'll likely choose different color schemes and have different visions for the home. Imagine paying up for high-end vinyl only to sell a home and see the new owner rip out your work and plug in new hardwood floors. You will want to rehab the dangerous portions at a minimum. Fix roof leaks, weak floors, broken windows, mold issues, and really anything potentially sharp, water-related, or potentially collapsible. Beyond that, you'll find people will repaint walls, change cabinets, switch out flooring, and generally speaking, make the home their own because it is theirs. And that's a good thing. But not if you threw money down the drain by overspending on something that ultimately your new tenant won't want. What if you don't want to do a rehab? Can't you just sell the home crazy cheap as is? People refer to this as a handyman special. For handyman specials, you'll need to verify 3 things. Your buyer has the know-how, the money, and the time. Someone without the know-how is a serious liability as someone stands a chance to get hurt. And you'll be the one getting sued no matter who is at fault. Someone with know-how and time won't perform if they don't have the money to buy the materials, meaning your home will just sit there. Someone with know-how and money might also have their eye on bigger and better things. That will mean your home will sit on your property unfixed, looking grungy, but hey, at least the rent money comes in. Trust me, you don't want that either. Homeowners build communities, not vacant mobile homes even though they're paying their rent. Chapter 5, Marketing. So you have a safe, presentable home. How do you get people to show up to see it? First, take good photos. Then upload to things like Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Zillow, Rent.com, etc. I strongly recommend putting disclaimers in your ad. If you don't accept people with recent evictions, felonies, or vicious dogs, then say that up front. Imagine talking to a wonderful prospect, answering questions and overcoming objections for 20 minutes, only to find out they want to run a pit bull breeding business in your home in a community that does not allow pit bulls. Do not waste your time. Let poor fit prospects weed themselves out. Don't ever tell someone they can't apply. Don't ever tell someone with a service dog that you don't allow their breed of dog. Fair housing laws have nuances like that you and your employees will need to know, as scammers out there know the law and will look to catch you and your team slipping up. Liability and time wasters aside, let's say you post a great ad. Even then, people won't just show up and buy. You'll need to either email, message, or speak over the phone with the prospects and set an appointment. This complicates things if you live out of state. You'll need someone on site and possibly need to serve as the middleman, knowing your on-site person's schedule and the prospects. Apps like Calendly can be super useful in those situations. Remember, marketing is a skill. You can't just expect a $10 per occupied employee to have this skill. You can't even expect your full-time, salaried employee to have this skill either. You may not have this skill. It may take you a while to learn it too. Also, just because you set an appointment doesn't mean the prospect will show up on time or even keep the appointment. You or your employee will need to have a strong follow-up game. Different submarkets react differently to marketing campaigns. You'll need to tinker with your marketing, as a one-size-fits-all strategy simply won't work. Sometimes even in the same city. Different properties in different areas attract different client bases. Chapter 6, Salesmanship. If the thought of selling makes you cringe, I have bad news. Just like a good idea, a good home won't just sell itself. You'll need someone on site to show the home and, more importantly, to sell. They'll need to know what questions to ask, know what answers to give, and be ready to overcome some serious objections. Ian and I both love selling. For when we can't be on site ourselves, we have employees we can coach too. Or, worst case, just pop on a call and handle directly. If you don't have experience selling and your employee doesn't either, believe it or not, your home might sit. Someone will have to overcome serious objections like, why is this community better than my other options? How do I know you as an owner will keep this community safe? What if I move out before I pay the home off? If I pay cash, why does it matter if I have an eviction on my record? If I'm the owner, why can't I have a vicious house dog? What's stopping me from just moving this home out of this mobile home park? Chapter 7, Tenant Screenings. Once you triumph through the gauntlet of objections, you'll have to complete the tenant screening process. This deserves an episode of its own. But I'll say this. Wait for the right tenant. We once waited 4 months to lease a home up. The pain of a vacant unit will mess with your head, but stay disciplined. Taking shortcuts will compound the issue. Having the right tenants in place will reward you with more than just consistent on-time rent checks. It'll yield a lack of headaches. Patience is a virtue. Chapter 8, How to Finance the Sale of a Park-Owned Home to the Tenant. You've got an interested buyer that passed your screening. Now, what options can you give them to buy it? Most people who want affordable housing don't just have $20,000 cash to pay for a mobile home. So, they'll have to get a loan, either from a bank or from you. Banks will absolutely frustrate you and your potential tenant. Not to mention, if the tenant defaults, you could find yourself bidding on your own mobile home, desperately fending off mobile home poachers, who are everywhere, by the way. You'll probably want to be your own bank if you can. It gives you way more control and also additional revenue. I'm sure you have heard of rent-to-own, lease option, rent credit, etc. Like licensing, don't get cute. Consult an attorney that understands your state's laws. It may make sense to draft up closing documents and charge interest. Your state may allow for a lease option arrangement. You may even be able to sign the title over to a tenant but maintain a lien on the title. Again, consult your attorney. No matter what your attorney recommends, if you bring in a new tenant, do not work out a zero down option. For conversions, sure, zero down makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. But for someone moving in, you don't have a security deposit or any leverage over a knucklehead tenant that might destroy your home. Also, when marketing, you will find you can weed out higher risk of default prospects by simply requiring a strong down payment. Chapter 9, Negotiation. Once you have an approval, expect an occasional negotiation. Can I do 1,000 down instead of 1,500? Can I do 600 a month instead of 650? Can you sell for 12,000 instead of 15,000? Can you work with me on the lot rent? In most situations, no is a very powerful weapon. Remember, you usually have the upper hand. This is your home. Get what you think you deserve for it. That being said, don't pass up on a great tenant if they have a legitimate request. For example, maybe you take 2,000 down instead of 3,000 because your prospect says, I'd like to invest $1,000 in additional renovations up front. You might be all over that request. You might not. Regardless, during negotiations, you also need to demonstrate empathy and ask the right questions. In my experience, I'd recommend anchoring the negotiation with strict terms and then be flexible from there. Otherwise, you risk losing control of the negotiation. I could also devote an entire episode to negotiation. Just know, for this episode, that each step of the process of selling a home requires skill sets that you, your partners, and/or your employees may not have. Chapter 10. How to finance the purchase of the mobile home park. So let's say you do have the skill set, desire, and opportunity to pursue this strategy. Hold up. It may still not be that simple. As of this recording in 2019, most lenders don't recognize park-owned home rental income in their underwriting. And most sellers do, meaning they'll be shocked and disappointed when you value their property based on lot rent only. In other words, securing debt might prove tricky. You may need to pursue a bridge loan, buy all cash, or get creative if seller carry isn't an option. Chapter 11. Miscellaneous. Just a quick few things. Smaller homes don't sell as well. Neither do 2 bedrooms. Keep that in mind during due diligence. Flat top roofs leak way more frequently than A-frame roofs. Older homes usually require a lot more rehab and ongoing rehab, not to mention their energy costs are a lot higher. Keep that in mind when deciding whether or not to replace the home entirely. You should insist on fixing potentially dangerous issues in the home you convert, even if your current renter says it's not that big of a deal or they can fix it themselves. For example, electrical issues usually require licensed professionals and can have ugly results if you cheap out. The pain of paying up for a specialist dwarfs in comparison to the financial and emotional cost of a lawsuit. If you've never owned in that market before and you don't already have a fix-it person you trust, do not expect the in-place maintenance team will perform the way you need them to, or that the local market will provide you with quality and affordable talent. Finding reliable and affordable contractors is tough. Consult with your CPA, as selling a mobile home will require you to remove that from your balance sheet. Things like rehab costs can actually be capitalized. Cost segregation analysis can end up saving you big time in taxes. As always, buying park-owned home heavy comes with pros and cons. But if your background doesn't include taxes, lean on a trustworthy professional to plan. Don't forget to do the math. If you spend tens of thousands moving in or just rehabbing an in-place home and you can't find an all-cash buyer, that'll take years to recoup your initial investment. And what would you rather do? Spend $100,000 of your own money investing in a few mobile homes or a new mobile home park? That's a question you will have to answer. Arguably, the most important point I will make on this episode is that you must understand that once you sign that title over to someone, there is not a lot preventing them from just removing the home from the community. And you may lose a few homes. And the cost to replace a home can be tens of thousands, and again, may take years to recoup that initial investment. We bought Countryside Mobile Home Park on February 15th of 2018. It was zoned for 68 lots, had 52 homes, 45 of which being park-owned homes, and about 29 tenants. The gross rent roll totaled to about $15,000, and at closing, in the middle of the month, the property had delinquency of about $10,000. The park-owned homes were in awful shape, many of which had leaking busted pipes from a recent freeze that the park had to pay for since the sub-meters hadn't been installed yet. Water bills, understandably, were out of control. Crime was rampant. The park was in disarray. Oh, and we signed up for full recourse debt on this property. It took us forever to get our dealer's license and cost over $3,000. Why so much? Expenses included a class, a test, a financial audit, purchasing a surety bond, full criminal and credit checks, and a million other little stupid things that really wore me down. But we did it. We pounded the pavement to fix collections, rehab homes, rebrand the property, introduce 12 new homes, and sell off all but 3 park-owned homes, keeping 2 renters and an office. We also spent tens of thousands repaving roads, fixing infrastructure, installing new mailboxes, building a playground, and reinvesting in the community. As of this recording in late 2019, we plan to bring in 1 more home, making 65 total mobile homes and 64 residents as we plan to keep the office. Although we are zoned for 68, those last 3 lots aren't viable, at least not without spending an unreasonable amount of money. That took us going on 2 long years. We have only 14 of the original 29 tenants, meaning we turned nearly an entire property's tenant base. We did this turnaround ourselves. We slept on site when we had to. We spoke our broken Spanish and tested our sales, marketing, and negotiation skills. This was a heavy lift, and for a park with only 65 lots. My question to you is this: what part of this grueling, time-consuming, risky project sounded easy to you? Like Mike Conlon said in his interview with me, you can only take on so many projects at once. Our experience at Countryside is exactly what he was referring to. So anytime you have a thought like, wow, I bet no one has considered buying park-owned homes and just selling them off, or really anything you think is unique or different, you need to realize industry professionals with decades of experience have likely thought of that idea. The market is smarter than you think it is. Don't get caught thinking you're being a contrarian and underestimating the market's knowledge or your own abilities. Buying a park-owned home-heavy community is riskier. Yes, with higher risk comes higher reward, but with higher risk comes higher likelihood of failure. Plenty of companies have pulled this strategy off over the years. Plenty have failed. epically. If you start off wanting all tenant-owned homes and then realize you couldn't find a deal good enough that's all tenant-owned home, so now you're considering park-owned homes, and you're onto this value-add opportunity, buzzword hype story, then maybe the real question you should be asking is, are mobile home parks really what you thought they were? Maybe you too fell victim to a hype story, and now you're grasping at anything to get you into the industry. It's a tough question to answer honestly, especially if you've invested months, if not years, of your time looking for a mobile home park. It takes a lot of character and strength to admit when a sunk cost is exactly that, a sunk cost. That being said, do not let this episode serve as an excuse to not pursue a park-owned home heavy opportunity, but rather use this episode as a reference for you to better understand the risks and plan for contingencies if you do decide to go forward with a purchase. We have bought all tenant-owned. We have bought all park-owned home. We have converted park-owned homes. It took us nearly 3 years and 4 other mobile home park purchases before we bought a countryside. We waited a long time before we jumped into the deep end, opting first to prove we could perform the concept on other, less risky properties. But you are not us. You have got to find your own way to get started in this business. Maybe it makes sense to be riskier than Ian and I were. You've got to find what strategy works best for your needs. If you tinker with an all park-owned home opportunity and fail, as long as you don't get permanently damaged, you'll live to see another day. And as with anything in life, nothing good comes easy. Would having my due diligence list help you? If so, I will let you have it for free. That's right, my list that took me years to develop and includes plenty of lessons from mistakes that I made that now you can avoid. All absolutely free. All I ask for in exchange is leave me a 5-star review and a comment. Screenshot your comment when it goes live and email it to me via my website at archimedesgrp.com. Then, let's connect. I thoroughly enjoy helping all people, new and experienced, and I don't expect anything in return. Don't wait. Reach out. I'm looking forward to chatting soon.